Hey folks, welcome back to Letters for Now. This is Dan. I want to remind you that if you haven't shared anything from here yet, I would ask that you maybe think of someone in your life who could use this podcast episode, or maybe a different episode, or maybe one of the essays that live here on this Substack, and share it over to them and just let them know there's no paywall, there's no barrier to entry, that this content is here and available to anyone who would like to consume it for any reason. All right, with that, let's jump into what I've been thinking about lately. What I've been thinking about lately is pain. Not the sharp, very obvious kind that you might go to a doctor for example, but the kind that moves through rooms like smoke, leaving people coughing without ever knowing where the fire started. That hidden kind of pain that seeps out into the world beyond your lips and your porous skin. Sometimes it's a sharp word at the kitchen sink. Sometimes it's a tightness in your voice when you pick up the phone. If people still talk on the phone, I don't know. Sometimes it's nothing more than silence. Deliberate, pointed, withholding silence. A small, charged moment. And boy, can that silence land sometimes. And if we're honest, so often it gets passed along. You hang up the phone and your child asks you something innocent and you snap. Not because they deserved it, but because something in you was already full. And what I've started to realize is what we call conflict might sometimes more accurately be described as transference. A way of saying, here, you carry this for me. I don't know where else to put it. It may not be conscious. It may not be intentionally cruel. But it is very real. And if you slow it down, if you really pause and look at it, you can start to see it. This invisible handoff. Pain handed like a match that's still burning. But more specifically, here's the part I've been thinking about lately. Most of us don't want to do this with the stated outcome of hurting someone. Sometimes maybe you do. But in the times when you don't, you may just be looking for some kind of relief. You may want someone else to feel what you're feeling, not to punish them, but to be understood, or unburdened, or witnessed. And still, in trying to give your pain away, we often stay stuck in it, because pain doesn't really disappear when we pass it along. It just changes carriers, like a hot coal thrown from one hand to the next. And the strange part is, each hand that holds it gets burned. I don't know if it's strange so much as another part of the unconscious reality of it all. And that's what I mean by burden transference. It's not about anger or cruelty. It's about the physics of human hurt. Maybe the way heat seeks to move. The way pain, unprocessed, always finds somewhere to go, even if it has to go through someone else. Not to belabor this point, but in case this isn't quite yet landing, let's think about fire. Fire is one of our oldest teachers. It destroys, yes, but it also illuminates and warms and nourishes, protects. In almost every early myth, fire is a sacred force, stolen from the gods, carried across oceans, and tended through night so that it doesn't go out. But fire untended, fire tossed or flung, It burns through forests and houses and people. So here's the metaphor that I continue to come back to. What if our pain is fire? And what if we're all walking around carrying our own little ember? Or a whole bucket of embers. Sometimes they're glowing red, hot with grief or shame or fear. Sometimes they're just smoke. Quiet resentment that maybe we've tried to ignore. And sometimes when we feel overwhelmed, we don't know what to do with it. So we pass it on. We throw it. We don't mean to, but it happens. A glance, a tone, a silence, as mentioned before. But basically all in the effort to say, here, please, you take this. And the truth is, sometimes we don't even start the fire. Maybe we don't start any of these fires. I think maybe the more accurate way to say this. Sometimes, maybe every time, the ember that we're carrying was handed to us by someone else. Maybe recently, but maybe years ago or decades ago. A parent, a teacher, a boss, a system, an ancestor. You know the list, right? The hurt we carry has become ours, but it very well may not have started as ours. It may have been someone else's that they could no longer carry and tried to hand it off to us. Regardless, if it is ours now, it is ours to tend to. And this, I think, is maybe the most important point. James Baldwin once said, "You think your pain and your heartache are unprecedented in the history of the world, but then you read. You read and you realize this is part of being human, to suffer and struggle and to want to pass the weight of it off to someone else. And yet, to be called to something more gentle. So what in the world do we do with all of this? How do we not pass it on? Not to say that that's the goal of this, but just as an exploration. There is in the vast scheme of things, maybe we would call it a small but powerful idea from Viktor Frankl. He's the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor. And he wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose. In our choice lies our growth and our freedom." That space, that half second between feeling the burn and passing it on, is where everything lives. You don't need to be a saint. You just need to practice noticing. Maybe breathing. Maybe waiting. You could put a hand on your chest. You could whisper to yourself or say inside your head, "I am flooded. I am overwhelmed." You could step outside. You could take a sip of cold water. You could even be more proactive intentionally if you wanted. You could leave a journal open on your kitchen table. Or you could try to have a little mantra at the ready, such as, "Give me a minute." You say that to the person who you are engaged with. Give me a minute. It reminds me of a few essays ago. We spoke about the Benedictine nuns and how they, when they were tasked as a pair to do something for the day, they would first bow to one another and each independently say to the other, "Be patient with me. I will make mistakes." I'm butchering that a little bit, but that was the idea. I will make errors as we try to accomplish our tasks today. Please be patient with me. And I would say that these are not signs of weakness. They might be odd in our modern or colloquial society, but I wouldn't say that they're signs of weakness. They are signs of someone choosing to carry their fire carefully. We could say that. Maybe a nod toward mindfulness, as Thich Nhat Hanh might bring us to. Speaking of Thich Nhat Hanh, in Buddhist teaching, there's a parable about a man who's insulted, but instead of responding, he simply smiles. And the insulter says, "Why don't you get angry?" And the man replies, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The intention or the meaning here is that, they're using the word gift to mean these angry words, right? That this person wants to say something. The rage bait of online activity. I've recently learned this term. It's probably been around for a while and I'm just catching wind of it. But rage baiting is when people intentionally say things to you online to try to evoke anger from you so that you then get engrossed in this long-running, furious engagement with them. And yeah, here in this Buddhist teaching, they're calling that the gift, right? Those angry words that are spoken toward you that are meant to evoke some pre-calculated response from you. And the idea here is that if you don't take the gift, if you don't react or retaliate or pass it on, that gift stays just where it is, with the person who's speaking it, and it doesn't spread any further. But that is just one side of it, because it's not only about passing it on, it's about learning to tend to the fire or to the gift. If it has in some way impacted you, it's your job then to get close to it, to make friends with it, to tend to it, and to understand ultimately what it's made of, because what it's made of in you is different than what it's made of from the person who handed it to you. There are a lot of professionals and writings and things that you can consume out there, hopefully from a reliable source. But if you're looking for places to start or things to explore, you could look at how the body ties into all this somatic response. Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score. What's his name? Peter Levin? I could be butchering that. There's also Parts, thinking of your different feelings and things that try to protect you, things that maybe you don't particularly like, but they are there serving a very good purpose. And this is the idea of parts. You could look up parts work or parts therapy. And then there's, Japanese, what do they call it? Nature bathing? Taking a walk without your phone, putting your hand on the bark of a tree. Or breath work, 10 slow exhales, box breathing. Or a drink of water, cupped in your hands and splashed a bit on your face. And maybe some mantras that you could have at the ready, meditative practices, if you will. But they're out there to find, and they aren't tricks, but they are ways to tend. These are resources or tools that you can use to tend to the garden that lives inside of you. So I would say that beyond the personal, there's something larger at stake. Because this isn't just about our relationships, it's about our communities, our country, and our time that we live in. And we are living in a moment when pain is being thrown around like wildfire. There's political rage, generational wounds, historical injustice, economic insecurity, And each one of these things, and the billion others that I didn't name, each one of them is a spark. Each one is looking for some dry kindling to ignite. But as I've tried to talk a lot about already here on Substack, and as I will continue to do in the future, what if our communities could be our hearths? Places where pain could be tended to and not just thrown, scattered about. Places where we teach children how to sit with their anger and express it, and us help them tend to it before they really know how. Where we circle up together in community, not to shame anyone, but to understand each other. Where we ask not who's to blame here, but what do you need? This is what restorative justice, again a few essays ago, restorative justice is built on. Not punishment or vengeance, but on healing and responsibility and repair. Imagine if our cities worked this way, our schools or marriages or movements. Pain will still come, but it won't have to spread, because someone, somewhere, will have built a fire break. And ideally, they will have the community to lean on when that tending or that fire breaking gets hard. This is getting very long, so I'll try to wrap it up here, but I guess a question we could ask is, what does all this mean for us here, now? Well, it may mean that when someone hurts you, you don't have to catch fire. Sometimes you will catch it and you will feel like you didn't even have a choice, right? The fire is already there. You didn't pause for a moment and decide to let it in, but it just made its way through. It could also mean that when you feel overwhelmed, you don't have to throw the coal. You could find other ways to tend. You could certainly not beat yourself up if you do throw the coal. You could then tend to whatever has happened since you threw it. It could mean that when your chest is heavy, you can carry it with care or set it down gently. If you haven't caught this part of it yet, none of this is about being perfect. It's about being radically human, but being aware of what that means. Noticing the handoff, choosing the pause, practicing the tending. And when you get it wrong, not if, but when you get it wrong, as we all do, coming back to the hearth, back to the breath, back to yourself, is where you'll want to be. Thanks so much for joining me. These seem to be getting longer and longer. If you enjoy that, let me know in the comments. If not, I can certainly try to break these up a little bit better, if we want to say that. Invite some folks over, and I will see you in the next one.